Morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners in Multnomah County. The health and safety of our community and our staff members are at the forefront of our minds as we continue to navigate county business in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. In accordance with the declaration of emergency announced on March 11th and extended by the Board of County Commissioners on July 2nd, today's meeting is being held virtually. To align with social distancing guidelines, some of the rules associated with Board of County Commissioner meetings will be temporarily altered. Today, we will be suspending public testimony on non-agenda items. Written testimony on agenda items has been accepted via email. Please remember to mute your mic when you are not speaking, and when you're presenting, make sure to unmute your mic and check to see that your camera is on. And with that, Commissioners, please unmute yourself, and I would like a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson moves. Commissioner Jayapal seconds. Approval of the consent calendar. The board clerk will now take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafoury?
Aye. The consent calendar is approved.
R1, initiating vacation proceedings pursuant to ORS 368-341-1C for public property and directing the county road official to prepare a report as required by ORS 368.346.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Stegman moves. Commissioner Vega-Peterson seconds. Approval of R1. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Kafoury and Commissioners. My name is Ian Cannon. I'm the Transportation Division Manager in the Department of Community Services. I'm here this morning to request board approval of a resolution that will begin the process of considering the vacation of unused portions of Northeast 238 and Northeast 242nd connector roads that dead end on property owned by the Reynolds School District. If the board approves this resolution, I will develop a report with a recommendation of whether or not the proposed vacation is in public interest. That report will be presented to the board in a second meeting, and a hearing may be scheduled if less than 100% of the owners and abutting property owners do not indicate approval of the vacation in writing. Following my report and a scheduled hearing if necessary, the board will determine if the vacation is in the public interest and enter a resolution granting or denying the vacation request in compliance with ORS 368.356. And here with me to speak to the legal aspects of this transaction is Courtney Barnes.
Good morning. I'm Courtney Barnes, as Ian said, with the County Attorney's Office. As Ian said, this is a resolution before you to initiate vacation proceedings for two roads, the Northeast 238 connector and the Northeast 242nd connector out in East County. 2 weeks ago, you may recall Transportation brought a resolution before the board where the board accepted settlement agreements to acquire property interests necessary to construct the capital improvement project along Northeast 238 between Northeast Halsey and Northeast Gleason. You have heard us many times refer to this as the Northeast 238 improvement project. As mentioned during that presentation, one of the settlements was with Reynolds School District, and it was contingent on the county beginning the vacation process of the unused road segments on the property adjacent and running through the Reynolds School District property that the county did not acquire. And I really want to make sure that that is clear. The vacation, the property that's about to undergo vacation proceedings is not property that was condemned and taken for this project. Transportation has no current or future need for the property being proposed for vacation. These roads have never been built and only appear on paper. As mentioned, Reynolds School District owns the lot surrounding these roads, and the roads are no longer needed. Since the county has no future need for this property, Transportation is recommending vacation as it will unencumber the lot owned by Reynolds. With that, I will ask if there are any questions related to the settlement, because vacation of these roads was a condition of settlement with Reynolds School District. Basically, we recognize that it is up to the board to decide if vacation is appropriate, but we did let Reynolds know that we would, as a body, initiate the vacation proceedings. So board approval of this resolution today will begin those vacation proceedings. Any questions?
Thanks, Courtney. Marina, did we receive any public testimony on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. I'm going to call on commissioners to see if we have questions or comments. We're going to start with Commissioner District 1, Sharon Myron.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Jayapal,
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Vega Peterson,
No questions. Thank you.
and Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment again to appreciate the work that Courtney and Ian have done on getting this vacation done, and that how this piece was foundational to moving this project forward, and everybody wins. The Reynolds School Board, they now have a more valuable piece of property that they can use and are better positioned. So again, thank you for the great work.
Thanks, team. And the board clerk will now take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Myron,
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal,
Aye.
Commissioner Vega Peterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman,
Aye.
Chair Kafori.
Aye. The resolution is adopted.
R2, Budget Modification DCHS 001-1, increasing the YFS COVID-19 federal state appropriations by $2,560,763.
So moved.
Booth.
Commissioner
Second.
Stegman. Commissioner Stegman moves. Commissioner Jayapal seconds. Approval of R2.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Peggy Semelinsky, Director of the Youth and Family Services Division. As Marina just noted, I'm here to request your approval of DCHS 0121 budget modification, appropriating just over $2.5 million of one-time only COVID-19 Energy CARES funding into the Youth and Family Services Division. On June 5th, the Oregon Emergency Board allocated funds for energy assistance throughout the state in response to the COVID-19 crisis. For Multnomah County, our allocation is just over $2.5 million, as I indicated. We had learned about that action, but we did not hear about our award amount until late June, and therefore we were not able to get this into the adopted budget in time. We know that energy assistance and utility payment supports are vital for the community, so that folks impacted by COVID and other issues can pay the utility bills and help themselves stay stable in their housing. Given the urgency of the situation, the funds must be spent by the end of December, like all other federal CARES dollars. And our system of nonprofit providers who currently provide energy assistance are already administering one-time only funds in addition to their regular dollars. We've determined that we're planning that we will be hiring up a staff of temporary employees to administer these funds in the community. We've developed robust outreach materials and communications to other county programs, to our nonprofit providers, to the community writ large, and to 211 Info, so that we can get referrals directly to get these dollars into the hands of community members. Those staff have just begun their work, and they'll be doing this until the funds are expended by the end of December. So one of the areas that we're particularly focused on is supporting with the health department in terms of the process that they're standing up that impacts across the county around the contact tracers and community health workers, and then wrapping supports around those individuals and families who are identified and who test positive for COVID, and we can get their utilities bills paid. So with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Peggy. Marina, did we receive any public testimony on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, well, I will reverse the order of our commissioners and start this time with Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Peggy. Great news. We need some good news today. I did have a couple questions. So is there a limit or a cap of like, is there a certain amount of money that goes per person or per family, or like how many months can you pay for somebody's utilities?
Yes, there is a limit. And these funds, so it sort of follows the LIHEAP, low income heating energy assistance bill, but they've relaxed some of the requirements. And so it's up to $1,500 per household.
Okay.
And it can be, and generally we do it as a one-time payment, right? And so if that covers arrears or future, it ends up being sort of a balance in people's utility bill accounts for those that have, for whom they may not have a balance that high.
Okay, great.
And it varies, right? The amount varies per household.
Okay, that's great. And so we have to spend that money by December 31st, but it sounds like you've got a plan to make sure that that money gets distributed by then. I mean, do you think it really will take that long to distribute it?
I think the time it will take to distribute it will be a function of the time it takes to process applications. That is where we've currently, been, things have slowed down. The need has not slowed down in the energy assistance system, but the process, because it's a paper-driven system right now, and we work with a variety of clients who have varieties of technical capacities in terms of uploading documents or making sure that they're getting this, because this program does require paperwork around income eligibility. And so we have to gather all that before it's complete. So that's taking a little bit longer. So I think in terms of, I don't think there's any issue with spending the money, Commissioner. It's just, will it be gone by the end of September or the end of November? I think that's more a function of, like I said, the processing of the applications themselves.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Very happy about this. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
No questions. This is good news, and I'm glad we have a good plan for getting it in the hands of the people who really need it right now. Thanks.
Commissioner Jayapal?
It is really good news. I do have one question, Peggy. You know, I know that the utilities also have assistance or utility relief programs. Do we, as we're dispersing this money, do we try to make sure we're taking advantage of those other sources of assistance as well?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, so we're sort of working with the clients to say, okay, let's figure out, you know, what other forms of relief you have, and then this is kind of the last dollar in.
Yes, and sometimes, yes, and I'm not sure if it's the last dollar in, Commissioner. I can look into that for you. I think oftentimes clients have tried many things themselves, so they may have already approached the utility or may have received notice from the utility. So, but I can follow up on that in particular.
Great, thank you. It's great news.
Commissioner Myron?
I do not have questions, but again, great news, and thank you so much, Peggy.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for bringing us some good news this morning. And hopefully we will be able to help a lot of folks, because I know that there are a lot of folks in need. Call out to the federal government to send more dollars our way, please. We will put it to good use. The board clerk will now take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafoury?
Aye. The Bud Mod is approved.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
R3, request for referral to Multnomah County voters of ballot measure authorizing the county to establish tuition-free preschool for all program with new 1.5 to 3.8% tax on income above thresholds.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Stegman moves. Commissioner Myron seconds. Approval of R3. Commissioner Vega-Peterson, would you like to kick it off?
I would. Thank you so much, Chair. So today, I'm asking you to refer a unified preschool for all proposal to the November ballot. I have been looking forward to saying those words since taking office nearly 4 years ago, and I'm so thrilled we're arrived at this point. I'm so excited. I'm drinking decaf coffee this morning. The measure that we have before us is a culmination of 6 years of dedicated work and advocacy by members of our community. What began as a vision held by the parents of Early Learning Multnomah's Parent Accountability Council has evolved into a measure that will truly transform the lives of children, families, and preschool providers in our community. No community in the country has written such a comprehensive measure or designed a policy as expansive as this one in true partnership with Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities in the way that we have. It is truly something to be proud of. And we know people want this. Our colleagues at Universal Preschool Now pulled off the incredible feat of collecting thousands of signatures in just 5 weeks. Nearly 25,000 voters said, yes, we want preschool. On top of that, over 100 community members worked for 2 years on the policies in this measure, and 30 organizations, from the Coalitions of Communities of Color to Family Forward to Children's Institute to Ask Me, have endorsed and supported this measure. Additionally, our polling shows that nearly 7 in 10 Multnomah County voters support and would vote for Preschool for All. It is clear, now is the time. We've talked a lot over the past year about the challenges facing Multnomah County. We know that this is a hard place to raise a child. The cost of living is high. The cost of childcare and preschool here is among the highest in the country. 60% of our families live at or below the self-sufficiency standard and are struggling to meet their basic needs, let alone save for the future. We face unacceptable inequities in education and in health. And right now, only 15% of families with 3- and 4-year-old children have access to publicly funded preschool. On top of all these challenges that have existed and festered for years, we're living in a world that is vastly different than it was 6 months ago. The COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically changed the child care and preschool landscape. Families are experiencing economic uncertainty in the ways they haven't in at least a decade. Parents are struggling to find preschool experiences for their children that they can afford, trying to figure out how they can possibly return to work without joyful environments for their children to learn and be cared for in. Providers are desperate for support and relief. And on top of that, we're in the middle of a moral reckoning. Our community, our country, is finally confronting the trauma and negative impact of systemic racism in a way that we have not done so for more than 50 years. It is a moment that requires strong leadership and clear vision. It is a moment in which we, as elected leaders, are called to take bold action to address disparities and oppression without equivocation. Referring Preschool for All gives us an opportunity to show our community, especially our Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, that we are serious about building a world where equity is our highest priority and opportunities for marginalized and oppressed communities are expanded in meaningful ways. At the start of the Preschool for All Task Force, we made a series of commitments to children and families. And one of them was to do which we think cannot be done, to push and challenge ourselves to go beyond what we previously thought possible. And this measure does that. Marina, would you mind starting the slides now? Thank you. And if you can go down to the third slide, please. Thank you. So here are some of the ways that Preschool for All lives up to the commitment that we've made to families. It creates a universal program for all 3- and 4-year-olds in our community and explicitly prioritizes families who have the least access to preschool. BIPOC families, families whose children have developmental delays or disabilities, families who speak languages other than English at home, families experiencing poverty and economic challenges. It prioritizes the well-being of our workforce. For far too long, the people who educate and care for young children have not been valued for their incredible, important, difficult work they do. Today, preschool providers are paid poverty wages. Under this measure, wages go up dramatically, with teachers earning a wage on par with kindergarten teachers, and all other staff who work with children earning at least $18 an hour with an annual union negotiated cost of living adjustment, or 135% of Portland Metro's minimum wage. I cannot emphasize enough what a big deal this is for workforce in the sector. Today, the early care and education workforce experiences an average turnover of 25%. With these wages, the people who educate our youngest children at the most important times of their brain development will be able to stay in the profession at a time when we really need them to do that. This program is also flexible. It sounds simple to expand preschool using only one model, for example, through the K-12 public school system. But in doing so, we would decimate the small, culturally specific providers who have been providing excellent care and education for children for decades. This measure expands preschool through a mix of program types, including home-based providers, culturally specific providers, small centers, Head Start, and the public school system. It supports and elevates the diversity of settings that children can learn and thrive in. It gives families options. There is no one-size-fits-all for solutions for families. Some need care year-round for the entire workday. Some only want care during the school year. Some want half-day options. Some want a program designed for their culture that they can participate in with their child. Preschool for All funds and support all of these options so that families have the ability to choose the program that's right for them. And this program protects Black, Brown children and all children of color. It is well documented that suspensions and expulsions from school start as early as pre-K for BIPOC children and children in special education. And the trauma and stigma that come from being kicked out of a program such as at such a young age stays with the child and their family for their entire educational career. Preschool for All forbids suspensions and expulsions. Additionally, it protects infant-toddler care marketplace. Other jurisdictions that have expanded preschool saw the unintended consequence of losing infant-toddler slots. Preschool for All has built in an infant-toddler protection fund that allows us to ensure that this doesn't happen. And finally, Preschool for All invests in the development of the workforce and celebrates the many ways that people can enter the profession. This program invests in coaching, learning opportunities, and training for the workforce in significant ways. Our workers and providers are not an afterthought here. They are our partners who will finally get the support they deserve. As you can see, I am very excited about the policies that have gone into this measure, and I'm equally excited and proud about the process that we took to get here. Throughout the process, we would sometimes joke that we definitely chose to do this the hard way. It's not easy to write policy with an entire community, but by doing it the hard way, we've created something special, something unique, and something that will make a real difference. And this includes the work that we've done in partnership with Universal Preschool Now. Both of our campaigns are dedicated to similar values: make preschool universal, fight systemic racism, support our workforce. We've worked together for nearly a year now to come to a unified measure. Along the way, we've pushed each other to make changes, to see new ways to solve problems, and again, to do what we think cannot be done. I'm so happy to be able to say today that our work together has paid off and is allowing us to move forward in partnership. In our work to merge into one campaign, we've made two recent changes to the Preschool for All ordinance that I want to make clear. Marina, can you please go to the next slide? Thank you. To align both groups' desire to create a universal and lasting, high-quality, tuition-free preschool system in Multnomah County that prioritizes families with the least access today, we've updated our revenue mechanism with a bump in our tiered marginal income tax rate in 2026 to ensure that the universal program is fully funded. In 2026, the tax would automatically increase 0.8%, with an advisory group established to determine exactly what increases is needed to achieve universality. Marina, next slide, please. With this increase, our modeling shows that we will deliver access to all 3- and 4-year-olds in Multnomah County in 10 years. We also worked hard with UPN partners to structure our compensation proposal for this measure, and we've made updates to the plan for assistant wages based on those conversations. Marina, if you could go to the next slide. To ensure that all preschool classroom teachers and assistants earn a living wage, assistant preschool teachers will be paid a minimum of $18 an hour in 2020 dollars, with an increase tied to a COLA or 135% of the Portland minimum wage, meaning it will be higher when this program starts in 2022. Classroom teachers will be paid on par with the average kindergarten salary. It also establishes a compensation matrix that reflects a program assistant teacher's minimum wage will be no less than 75% of a program teacher's minimum wage by 2035. With higher salaries, we can keep talented teachers in the field, leading to better outcomes for kids. And we also define assistant preschool teachers broadly so that all non-lead teaching staff working with children are included. I want to thank Emily Von W. Gilbert, Mary King, Suzanne Cohen, Serah Moranovich, and Will Lang for working with us over the past several months to get to this point. I also want to thank all of the UPN volunteers who have worked so hard to collect signatures and prove that voters want this to happen. Marina, next slide, please. To my colleagues on this board, you're going to hear now from community members who share my enthusiasm for this work. I'm happy to turn it over to our panel at this time.
Thank
And I believe the first person that we have up is Kalithorne Lad. Is Kalithorne on?
I'm not seeing Khalid. Let me check the.
While we're looking for Cully, and maybe someone can text her and see if she's having difficulties getting on, let's turn to Lydia.
Hi, my name is Lydia Gray-Tollyfield, and I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. I want to speak on behalf of the Early Learning Multnomah Parent Accountability Council, which is PAC. I'm here representing the African American community, the Slavic community, the Russian, Vietnamese, Latinx, and Pacific Islander communities. I'm here as a parent voice. I want to just share with you why this is so important for us as parents. We know what we want to have in our classrooms. We know what we want them to look like. We also want to make sure that we are a voice for our community, because it's important to us for our children to walk into the classroom and see people that look like them, for their languages to be spoken in their classrooms, for parents to be reassured that when they leave their kids in preschool, that they know that their children are going to be ready when it's time to go to kindergarten. So as parents, we want to thank you for hearing our voices. We want to thank you for allowing us to have this space, to be a part of this. This is huge for us. We've been working on this initiative for over 6 years. And so it is so important for us as parents to be able to use this opportunity to make sure that we are included in this. For so many, oftentimes as Black and Brown families, we're not included. We're not even asked what we want for our children. We're just told. So we're thanking you that you guys are allowing us to change that narrative, that we do have a voice, that it does matter to you guys, that we are the center of our children. You cannot make decisions for us without us. That is one of our guiding principles at PAC. And oftentimes those decisions are made for us. We want to thank you for the opportunity to partner with us. That's what we're looking for as parents, a partnership. We're looking for an opportunity to work together. We're also thankful that some of the preschool teachers that will be working in the classroom will be some of our parents, because we're going to create a model where our parents can also be a part of this. So even when their children go on past preschool, they'll still have an employment, and it'll be a little livable wage where they won't have to quit or they won't have to struggle, but they'll be able to take care of their families. And so that means that they can then stand up and be proud. We want to make sure that the language that the children are speaking at home is being spoken in their classroom. So and it's important to us that that happens. We also want to make sure that we're greeted when we walk in the front door of our child's classroom. We're said good morning to, and then the kid is said good morning to, and that people understand that this is important for us, because that's oftentimes not what happens. It doesn't happen that way. We walk into our classrooms and we're not greeted, our language isn't spoken, and we leave our children there. And then what happens is a child is maybe given milk and they can't drink milk, and the baby comes home every day, stomach hurting, and parents, because there's a language barrier, parents don't know what's going on. So we want to thank you that this will be changed, that this change will happen, and that this change will impact the outcome, not just for preschoolers, but for children who are going to go all the way up to high school, so that they're, when they get to third or fourth grade, they're at the right reading level. They're not dropping out of school in middle school. They're continuing on and going to college. So that's what that's what we want to thank you for, the opportunity to have a preschool where all kids in Multnomah County can be able to go to preschool and have they can become taxpayers later on. Why? Because they now have a great job. They now got a great foundation. Being in preschool is the foundation, is preparing children for success, preparing children to get ready for kindergarten. So when they walk into the kindergarten classroom, their first day, their tool belts are filled with tools that are providing them the way to participate in classrooms, sit in classrooms, be ready and excited about going to kindergarten. They're not nervous. They're not running all over. They're prepared and they're excited. Like, oh my God, I'm in kindergarten. I've graduated. That's awesome. So we just want to say thank you for allowing us to have a voice at this table. We want to say thank you for allowing our children to be at the forefront, and that it's important to us. So we appreciate, and I appreciate this time that you have allowed Early Learning Multnomah Parent Accountability to come and speak. And we hope that moving forward that we all can work together to make this happen for Multnomah County. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Kali, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. I'm sorry I had some technical difficulties, but I think it was fitting because I think this is all about the voice of parents and the voice of community. And I always love hearing Miss Lydia talk, and she brings truth. So my name, for the record, is Kalithorne Lad, and I am Executive Director of Kairos PDX. I'm also a member of Oregon's Early Learning Council and have been a longtime advocate and sort of policy person for early childhood, and particularly supporting Black and Brown children in our community. I have been part of the Preschool for All task force from its inception to the pre-referral process. And so it's an honor to be able to talk to you today. I think all of us know and can feel, and I know all of you, both you chair and county commissioners, understand the moment of time that we're in. Amidst a global pandemic and a racial awakening, we have an incredible opportunity to do something meaningful right now for Multnomah County children. I am really excited to see this reckoning take place. I think many from my community are as well, because we recognize that for too long, we have not heard the voices and supported the children who are most vulnerable. And we have succumbed to, I think, the structural and systemic racism that impedes progress for children. As someone who loves neuroscience and loves research, and people hear me talk about it a lot, the early years are the most critical years of brain development for a child. Ages 0 to 6 are when the brain is developing most rapidly. It is setting the course and that sort of inner networkings for the future of that child. And even though neuroplasticity exists, the foundation that we set for children in the early years really does pave the way to who and how they are into the future. And so, unfortunately, Oregon as a state is still on a journey and has been focusing on increasing access to early childhood. But I think Multnomah County has a very unique and powerful opportunity to provide that through the Preschool for All measure. I believe so much on it and in it that the Reimagine Oregon framework that myself and other Black leaders put out last week included a policy language around ensuring that all Black children have access to early childhood. And the reason why the Preschool for All effort is particularly important is that it recognizes the racial inequities, and it's targeting preschool not just for children in poverty, but it also calculates the importance of communities of color in that equation. And I think that is very important because of the systemic inequities that we see. And so my hope is that we can support this method. I think it does need to be intentional. We need to be explicit. The Preschool for All ordinance does all of those things. And it's not just being put upon us. This is something that has been devised and designed and informed by community from the very beginning. We have listened to testimony from diverse communities across the board. We've listened to immigrant communities. We've listened to small and large. We've listened to Central and East Portland and East Multnomah County. This is the amalgamation of, I think, powerful voices and thought leaders and leaders of community-based organizations saying, now's the time, and we've devised a proposal that is very specific, that helps build capacity in the system over time and ensures those most vulnerable have the early childhood space or services that they need. So everyone keeps asking me, what can I do right now in this time of Black Lives Matter? I get asked that almost daily for a while. I was getting asked. I would say to all of you, this is something you can do for Black Lives Matter, and you'll do it for Brown lives and Indigenous lives and the Asian and Pacific Islander and our Slavic community and our poor community. This is something that you can do to show that children matter, and I hope that you will refer this and adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
We're glad you were able to make it on this morning. Thank you for that. I think, Ricardo, you are up next.
Thank you, Chair Kafori and commissioners. For the record, my name is Ricardo Lujan Valerio. I'm the Director of Advocacy at Latino Network. We believe in community self-determination. That is the ability for the community members to participate meaningfully in decisions that affect their lives. For nearly 3 years, Latino Network contributed to the development of policy priorities and pre-implementation plans for Preschool for All. We lended our expertise on early childhood training and education through the Preschool for All Task Force, Parent Accountability Council, Policy and Program Work Group, and the Technical Advisory Committee. We are proud to support Preschool for All, and we are confident that it echoes many diverse voices that contributed to the ambitious plan. We thank Commissioner Vega Peterson for engaging community families and the Commissioner's commitment to Multnomah County youngest children. Community-based organizations, providers, and educators bring valuable human, social, and financial resources to Multnomah County. Community-based organizations like Latino Network play an integral role in the personal and academic lives of our youngest children. Latino Network programs are designed to ensure the Latinx community have access to the programming that is responsive to our educational assets and skills. Latino Network's culturally specific programs, such as Juntos Aprendemos, Together We Learn, are proven to support parents as children's first teachers and prepare children to success in kindergarten when disparities become visible. Preschool for All provides an intentional framework to build out a high-quality early learning system for 3- and 4-year-olds in Multnomah County, beginning with children and families with the least access to preschool today. Prior to the devastating impact of COVID-19 on early learning systems, Oregon ranked among the least affordable state of childcare and preschool. The cost of early learning opportunities exceeds the budgets of many families in Multnomah County who struggle to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. Latino Network asked Multnomah County and board to refer Preschool for All for the November 2020 ballot. Research demonstrates the high quality of early childhood education and that it is one of the most effective investments a taxpayer could ever make. And lastly, I do just want to also thank the team at Latino Network, Sadie Fader and Anthony Castaneda. They've been amazing and instrumental in making sure that this policy is cooked well, that it truly does have that immigrant and Latinx component to it. And as many of my colleagues have stated already in their testimony, this is, through its inception, this has been led by, not just for, but it's been led by communities of color, BIPOC communities. And we're so proud to have such a vast amount of community support behind the endorsement of this measure and this ask. So thank you again for the opportunity to testify in front of you, and I'm excited and happy to see the outcome of this meeting.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's good to see you. Do we have Angie? There you are. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, County Commissioners. My name is Angie Garcia, and I am the multi-site director and owner of Escuela Viva. I've also been a part of the Universal Preschool Now campaign. Before I launch into what I have to say this morning, I want to share that I am beyond thrilled that we have one measure on the ballot for universal preschool. Multnomah County has come together to ensure that our 3- and 4-year-olds have access to quality preschool. This is a tremendous feat that we were able to accomplish because we were unified around a common goal. Thank you to everyone, especially to Preschool for All, for continually coming back to the table to make this happen. For more than 16 years, Escuela Viva has served children and families here in Portland, Oregon. Escuela Viva was a small in-home program that I started in my basement. Now I have 2 centers with a licensed capacity for more than 115 children. Yet my career in early childhood education started my sophomore year in high school when I began working in a child care setting. I worked in the same center through college. During my graduate studies, I completed a 1-year practicum in a Head Start program. I loved the model, yet still felt it was a model that is segregated based on income. And to quote Jonathan Kozol, an awful lot of people come to college with this strange idea that there's no longer segregation in America's schools, that our schools are basically equal. Neither of these things is true, and he's right. And the pandemic has shined a light on just how vast these inequalities are. I began dreaming of a universal early childhood education model when I realized several things. Only a universal system can ensure that all children, regardless of race, color, that they are all afforded an equal experience and in a quality preschool. Only a universal system would acknowledge the real work of preschool teachers, and that real work being providing the social and emotional foundation that children need in order to be successful in a public school setting. Ask any kindergarten teacher and they will tell you how critical these early experiences are. Only a universal system with adequate funding can ensure that we actually pay preschool teachers for their work. I have worked hard to ensure that my staff are paid a decent wage. Normally, staff wages are $16 an hour for entry-level teaching assistants and teachers $18 an hour. Currently, we are paying $20 an hour for hazard pay because we can't ask preschool teachers to do work during a pandemic and not pay accordingly. More than 90% of my staff are bilingual in English and Spanish. I want to pay them more because they deserve more. Their work is important. Yet a system that is parent-funded through tuition is not sustainable. The pandemic has shined a light on this and how true this statement is. There's not one person in our country that is not severely impacted by the childcare crisis we are facing. A universal preschool system would be an amazing start to ensure that all families would have access to preschool regardless of their ability to pay. That is why I enthusiastically endorse putting universal preschool on the next ballot, because universal early childhood education has always been a dream of mine, and I love to be providing the kind of care for all children that helps them and their families thrive. I believe that Multnomah County voters are ready to pass the measures that support this work, and I'm really looking forward to being part of a universal program that supports providers and workers with the sufficient funding to do this job right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Is Suzanne up next?
Hello. Am I?
I don't see your face, so it's.
So it works. Okay.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Oh, I'm right here. Good morning. I am Suzanne Cohen. I am a high school health teacher at Roosevelt High School and past president of the Portland Association of Teachers. And though the Portland Association of Teachers primarily represents K-12 educators in the Portland public school system, we have enthusiastically been supporting and working on preschool for our students. And the reason being is we've been engaged for years in conversations with our educators around additional revenue for public schools and what would be some of the best ways to invest this additional revenue. And across the board, even from our high school educators, something that just kind of came up over and over again was the need for quality early education and early intervention for our students. This became a focus of a lot of work that we did, including with the Student Success Act. When Universal Preschool for All, or when Up Now came and discussed with us about bringing forth or working on something like this, this was before there was any language created. We started working around some shared values. What would we want to see? And so obviously the first thing was that it had to be child-centered, developmentally appropriate, that really met the needs of early learners and not just a push down of academics. Of course, being a union, we were very concerned about workers' rights. We know that the quality of education demands that our professionals working with the students are also quality professionals that are supported, both financially with professional development and with great working conditions. And so that meant good wages and the right to unionize. And another value we had that it was universal, that preschool would be available to any student and any family that felt that that was the right decision for their student. And we wanted this because we knew it would lift all boats and help our K-12 system as well as our families and really everyone, because we know of the impact, including on educators, those female-dominated workforces, as we struggle to make choices about what to do, whether we return to work or stay with our children. So with all of these values, we were very excited about our measure, and we also held the value of having one measure on the ballot. And so over the past months, we shared all these values and we're working to see if it would be possible to have it all. And at times we wavered, would it be possible to have it all? And I think like what's really exciting about this moment is we've come to a place where these values can all exist behind one measure, and that's very, very exciting. So, as a chief petitioner and on behalf of the Portland Association of Teachers, we are very excited about coming together and supporting opportunities for everyone to see the benefits of preschool. Whether you have a preschool student yourself or not, we would all benefit from being able to provide this. Thank you, everyone, for all your work and all your time.
Thanks, Suzanne. And I'm afraid that we skipped over, and I very much apologize. Olivia Pace, you are up next. Again, sorry I missed you.
No problem. Hi. My name is Olivia Pace. I am a temporarily laid off preschool teacher from the North location of Growing Seeds Learning Community, a child development program with 2 centers in Northeast Portland and 1 at Reed. All locations care for children as young as 6 weeks and through preschool age. I'm an extremely proud member of the Growing Seeds Workers Union. We won our union vote on March 11th, 2 days before closing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with 90% of workers in favor of unionizing. Our timing could not have been luckier, and I feel very, very, very blessed to have had even the marginal changes and protections and opportunities to make these changes at our workplace, which come after a union vote during these extremely difficult and uncertain times. I am here as a member of the organizing committee of the Growing Seeds Workers Union, a now longtime supporter of the Universal Preschool Now campaign, and as a child care worker since I was 15 years old. I am here to enthusiastically support a single measure fighting for universal preschool on the November ballot. The single measure must include fair wages for all preschool workers, regardless of the teaching position, union-neutral language that protects the rights of workers to organize, improved healthcare benefits, universally available or universality and availability to all children in Multnomah County, and so much more. And it must ensure that these measures and all other new benefits for preschool workers and students proposed in the measure are applied universally and as swiftly as possible. I've worked in childcare since I was 15, starting out as a dance teacher at a local rec center until my sophomore year of college. Since then, I have occupied various teaching and aide positions in preschool classrooms. I entered childcare because I have always truly loved nurturing and taking care of younger people, even when I was still a young child. And as I came into adulthood, I began to understand how critical the time period of preschool is for children, and therefore how critical childcare workers and preschool teachers are. There's often an attempt to dichotomize childcare work, which happens before and during preschool age, with childcare work, which occurs after preschool, or what a lot of people see as the real teaching jobs. Many speak about work with children under the age of 5 as if its only utility is to put children somewhere while their parents work, and throw an adult in the room to make sure they eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. And in reality, it is a combination of education. It is the combination of education and care, which makes childcare workers so critical, and the work we do absolutely comparable to that of secondary school teachers, and for that matter, every other kind of educator. In a single day, I'm having discussions with my 3 to 5 year olds about race, gender, and class, collaborating with my co-teacher to create hands-on experiences for the children to help solidify our lessons, transcribing my students' words by hand, serving food, changing clothes, putting my children to sleep, keeping track of children's individual medical needs, attempting to plan weeks of curriculum in my small amount of planning time, and keeping track of the days of all 19 of these children so I can report back to each of their parents. Not to mention that children at this age are at a developmental stage where every interaction they have, every message they get, every lesson they experience, the environment they're in, the things they come to expect the other day are serving to form their personalities in concrete and virtually irreversible ways. It is a deeply important and extremely heavy burden which society places on childcare workers. And yet, I am paid subpar wages and am without immediate granted access to comprehensive medical coverage. We cannot carry this burden if we live in poverty. We cannot carry it if we cannot take care of our bodies. This work is my passion. Teaching preschool specifically is my dream job. It is in no way less important than any other educational experience. However, within the current conditions, I understand that I will have to eventually move out of this field, specifically because I have cystic fibrosis, a chronic and progressive lung illness that produces extremely high medical bills. I am 23, and when I am 26, I won't be on my parents' insurance. And for me and for many others with pressing medical issues, working in childcare, where we are most often not provided with comprehensive or affordable health coverage, compounded with low wages, is a death sentence, or you have to leave. I am in no way unique in my constant teetering on the edge of leaving this field. Turnover is notoriously high in childcare. It comes from no lack of passion for young children who deserve the world. It is because these workers are not valued. We say that education is a common good, and yet look at the situation that we're in with this current crisis. When things fall apart, the fragility of the system is exposed. Our world is built on the backs of workers: grocery store clerks, agricultural and food processing workers, childcare workers. And it is too heavy a burden to carry, leaving this so-called common good to crumble. The universal right to a full and joyful education for preschool-age children cannot possibly fall on the back of a working-class, Black, chronically ill 23-year-old woman making $17.75 an hour, still fully dependent on my parents' health insurance. I deserve more security, and so do my kids. This is why we organize for something better. This is why me and other members of my union and our organizing committee have been fervent supporters of the Universal Preschool Now campaign. Up Now was driven by workers, and so the people on the ground truly understood what workers needed. The people behind that campaign brought all of us in, supported the Growing Seeds Workers Union every step of the way, and always kept us informed on developments in the campaign. The demands of the campaign demonstrated a full understanding of the experience of childcare workers. So many of my coworkers felt empowered by the unionizing process and are passionate about fighting for change in a field we put so much energy into. I know many workers who would have left our school earlier had we not begun the process of organizing our union. The knowledge that your work is valuable, that you deserve better, and that you can fight for and win better, mitigates turnover and benefits children just as much as it benefits workers. Teachers' working conditions are our children's learning conditions. It is this reality that demonstrates the need for a universal preschool program to be rolled out as swiftly as possible. While there are certainly children in this county who currently need this less than others, who come from families where their basic needs are more than met and who go to expensive schools with more resources, by and large, childcare workers, regardless of the school, need change as soon as possible. The current economic crisis only makes the universal issues for workers in our field more pressing. Working with children, no matter the age, no matter the setting, is one of the most deeply important things any person can do. From infants to high school seniors, from teachers' aides to teachers at the head of the classroom. The work matters, and it is an egregious injustice to treat any worker in any section of this field as if their work is any less than critical. If we understand education as a tool for social justice, discarding a need to fervently champion workers' rights undermines that goal completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Sahar?
Hello, folks.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you, commissioners and everybody else for taking the time to be here. I'm Serah Moranovich and one of the chief petitioners of Universal Preschool Now. I do have my identity erased often, so I do want to mention I'm also a first-generation Iranian-American immigrant that only became a citizen this last February and then ran for office right after. I'm now the vice chair of the David Douglas School Board and serving as the executive director of the National Organization for Women, Oregon chapter. I do want to take one moment and we did have a lot of state violence in my district last night near Floyd Light Middle School, and I just want to send my thoughts to our families and community in East Portland that we know are dealing a lot more heavily with COVID numbers and with the density of how we are populated in this area. and we had violence and tear gas in my neighborhood last night, which is terrible. And so, you know, as a lot of us know, we are currently witnessing a massive civil rights movement. And I hope all of you have taken the time to be out there and be inspired by the people that are fighting for a better future. Many of us that have been involved in organizing work for many years know that in times of crisis, the inequities and inequalities in our systems are further exacerbated. You know, our families deserve and need to be taken care of and supported by the government, especially right now. We have so many compounded issues on top of one another for our working families. And as part of an equity analysis, I think it's always important to look at our systems through an intersectional lens and always be asking who all is being harmed in this and who all is benefiting. And so not only is it vital to implement a universal preschool program for our children, but also make sure our educators, those individuals that are in the classrooms with our children, are also making living wages, are truly supported for their labor, and in turn, that very much positively impacts both the well-being of our children as well as our staff, many of which, as we have mentioned, our childcare workers tend to be from communities of color, feminine women of color, and also a lot of times families that would not be able to afford preschool would be from communities of color. And so as one of the Up Now chief petitioners, I enthusiastically support bringing forth a single measure merging with Preschool for All in order to win a truly universal preschool program and fair wages with an equitable tax mechanism this fall. I'm really, really proud of this campaign, all the work that Up Now and Preschool for All volunteers have put into this. With our universal preschool campaign, getting those 30,000 signatures while not being able to knock on doors, you know, it's very much been a grassroots creative campaign to try and reach to individuals. And I just want to thank Preschool for All for sharing in our vision, meeting with us, and so that we can all together bring forth the most equitable and inclusive measure for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here this morning. Will.
Good morning, Chair Kafoury and County Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you great.
Great. My name is Will Lang. I'm the Executive Director of Portland Jobs with Justice, a coalition of labor unions and community groups taking action for workers' rights and economic justice, especially for those most marginalized in our community, such as people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ people, and women. I'm one of the 3 chief petitioners for the Universal Preschool Now measure, which qualified for the November 2020 ballot. I'm also a parent of a rising second grader, a 7-year-old that benefited quite a bit from preschool. I'm here today to say that I support the effort to unite the 2 separate measures that could appear on the ballot, because it will be far better for voters to have one single measure to decide on. Commissioner Vega-Peterson has assembled a great team of experts and leaders to develop Preschool for All, and with the significant improvements we've seen in the vision for universal preschool for all 3 to 5-year-olds in our county, good wages that significantly raise pay for workers, and with the tax paid for by the highest income earners in our community, our campaign is excited to join together as one initiative. It is time for bold measures like this one to improve working standards in this low-wage industry that primarily employs women and people of color, while offering a significant benefit to parents throughout our community that desperately need affordable preschool and sets our kids up for success in their education for years to come. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope you'll approve the effort to send this one united ballot measure to county voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. And next we have Mark.
All right, can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Good morning.
Excellent, good morning, thank you. Dragging up the rear here, I think I'm last on the lot, but glad to be here. I'm Mark Holloway, Holloway. I'm a volunteer with Social Venture Partners, who's also served as the co-chair of the Preschool for All Pre-Referral Steering Committee and the task force, alongside the incomparable, your colleague, Commissioner Jessica Vega-Peterson. I am really humbled by the opportunity to present testimony as one of the speakers from Preschool for All Coalition. And I apologize in advance if I get a little verklempt. Lumps in my throat are inevitable here. This has been a long road for us, and this is a very big day for our coalition. When we started this effort, Kairos PDX, that celebrates its 8th anniversary this month, was but a glimmer in the eye of Kali and her co-founders. Their vision was emerging at the same time that the Ready for Kindergarten Collaborative started constructing its own big tent to focus on systemic change that could be made for young children and families if we became a big we instead of disparate advocates and programs. That we, and the we that brings you this proposal today, has kept parents and families who have been underserved at the center so that their priorities become our priorities. Over these 8 years, literally hundreds of people from community-based organizations, schools, business, philanthropy, healthcare, government have spent thousands of hours making that happen. What you have in front of you now is a plan brought to you by a deep and broad coalition that should be a model for grassroots policymaking nationally, in my opinion. As we talk about the longevity and commitment of the coalition, I can't help but call out 3 organizations. There were middle years of this effort where there was no home for the work. Social Venture Partners and Early Learning Multnomah at the United Way provided that home with the vision and courage to convene and support CBOs like Latino Network in Kairos and many others to manifest the dream for their communities. Without the quiet, constant commitment to that vision, this outstanding resolution would not be in front of you today, nor would it have the fingerprints of hundreds of county citizens like it does. I also want to appreciate the work of Universal Preschool Now for gathering public support for Universal Preschool in the way that they have, and for showing courage in joining this effort to achieve our mutual priorities and goals. At the risk of co-opting for a moment the arc of racial justice, I want to end by drawing an analogy to the arc of Preschool for All. Before Black Lives Matter, there was John Lewis, who joined Martin Luther King's fight for justice, who stood on the shoulders of Rosa Parks, Marcus Garvey, and Frederick Douglass. The Preschool for All Coalition arc has been long and passed through many hands. We now entrust it to you, and with your support today, to the voters of Multnomah County, who we are confident will support this important investment in our children and in racial equity. Someday I expect you'll pass it on to future generations as well. When we began this work in a room, as I recall, at Marshall High School, Miss Lydia's beautiful daughter, Georgie, at 2 years old, was the literal embodiment of our vision. She graduated 5th grade this year. In another decade, perhaps she will be the beneficiary of the living wages in this plan if she chooses that profession, or bring her own child to a Black-owned preschool with teaching, strong teaching, and a joyful environment. In your hands, the dream will live on. We urge your yes vote, and thank you for considering Preschool for All.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for all of our presenters this morning. We appreciate you showing up in this unique and somewhat weird way via technology. I wish we could see you in person. Marina, did we receive any public testimony on this item?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
I do think, though, that I can speak for the rest of the commissioners, or maybe they will say themselves, that we've received hundreds of emails and phone calls and outreach from community in support of this ballot measure. Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I just really appreciate all the speakers that have gone before. I would like to propose an amendment to the resolution for consideration.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Stegman seconds. Both motions are now pending.
Okay, thank you. So everyone should have seen this language, this is the -1 amendment, and it really clarifies the scope and timelines for this measure in the resolution, and specifically it relates to Section A of the preamble. As you heard from the advocates today, These are really important details as we move forward with a unified coalition in putting Preschool for All forward, to be very clear on our objectives and our goals, and have our two campaigns unite behind a single measure. So the updated language that's before you for approval is the board determines it is a matter of county concern and a public purpose to, within the next 10 years, ensure universal, tuition-free, voluntary, high-quality preschool education for every 3- and 4-year-old with a parent or guardian residing within Multnomah County. And that is what's for consideration.
Thank you. I'm going to call on commissioners by district to see who has questions or comments just about this proposed amendment. We're going to start with Commissioner Myron.
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Jayapal?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson, do you have questions about your own amendment?
I do not.
Commissioner Stegman?
No questions.
Thank you. And the board will now take a roll call vote to accept the amendment.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafoury?
Aye. The motion passes. I will now call on commissioners by district to see who has a question on the resolution as amended. And we are going to start with Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. I really don't have any questions. Everybody, the briefings that I've received from Commissioner Vega-Peterson have been just really incredible. And just really want to call out that, a couple of the things that I really like about this measure is really preserving infant and toddler providers and making sure that there's not a migration of those providers elsewhere, to make sure that they still get quality care. And also, we talked a little bit about when Commissioner Vega-Peterson brought up to me about addressing suspensions and expulsions. And I just thought that that was insane that that was occurring in age groups of 3- and 4-year-olds, but clearly it does. And so I really appreciate the fact that this measure addresses that as well. And all of the speakers were so great. And Kalia, shout out to you. I know most of us have seen the incredible work that you do at Kairos. And I remember us having conversations about neuroplasticity and, really the science behind how children learn. And I was just always so excited that you have your fingerprints and the hundreds of other volunteers, organizations, CBOs, that this really is the way. And I think somebody said that something about, this is the hard way to create policy with community, but I really believe that this is the right way. And so thank you so much to Commissioner Vega-Peterson for her leadership. This has been a 2-year journey, I believe. And I'm not sure, to be frank, that I was completely on board in that I wasn't sure if Multnomah County was the right jurisdiction or organization to lead this effort. But the reality is that good policy is good policy. And I believe that this is good policy. And I think that we are well positioned to take a leadership and role and to administer this. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Commissioner Jayapal.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all of the presenters, and thank you, Commissioner Vega-Peterson. I too don't have questions because I feel I've been briefed really thoroughly. Chair, would you like us to go ahead and make our comments now as well, or are we coming back through again?
Thank you for that. Let's do questions first, and then we'll go through everyone. Have a closing.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to skip over you, Commissioner Vega-Peterson. I'm assuming you don't have any questions. I'll go to Commissioner Myron.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much to everyone who has been here today. And as the Chair mentioned, everyone who has contacted me outside of today's briefing. And I will make comments when we get to the comment period. But I do have some questions. And the first is just about the process of unification. And I was wondering I don't know who would speak to that, but how that came about, whether there was unanimity within the UPN coalition to sign on, and some questions about that aspect of things.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson, do you want to answer? Is there someone from the UPN coalition who would like to answer?
I think that having someone from the UPN coalition to answer would be the best. Do we want to have Sahar or Suzanne or Will?
I don't know if Emily wanted to speak on this. Is she on here, or one of us can?
I think she's on as a not in a speaking role. Only the participants who spoke have access to talking. So, you want to give it a shot?
Sure. Or could we move her over just because she would give the more holistic insight?
Is it Emily Gilbert?
Yes, Emily Von Gilbert.
Okay. I'm gonna make her a panelist. Oh, I'm gonna unmute her. I can't seem to make her a panelist. Emily, can you speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Available.
you for calling on me. So I can explain the merger process slightly. I am the Universal Preschool Now campaign coordinator. So I have been sort of in contact with our broad coalition in order to arrive at this decision that we have made, that we're announcing. And so our process for arriving at this decision started after the petition drive was successful, and we were understanding that it would be better to merge as a single measure. We did a first round of straw polling with all our coalition organizations to see what their main priorities were for a merged measure. We collected all that feedback, had meetings with the Preschool for All folks to sort of work out what needed to be changed in order to arrive at a shared proposal. We arrived at one that we thought was really good. Then we put that back out to our coalition for ratification. So we took a full coalition vote over the last weekend that came back with a strong majority preference for a merged proposal behind Preschool for All as being the single measure that would go onto the November ballot. And I will remind people that this coalition, all these organizations, are the people who collected all these 32,000 signatures, so they have a pretty good idea of what they think the public wanted when they signed our petition, and we feel like those values are now reflected in the Preschool for All proposal, and we are happy and confident in making this decision to merge.
Commissioner Myron, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emily. And have any of the members of that coalition expressed concerns about the idea that the UPN measure itself will not go to the ballot at all after getting all those signatures?
No, because we feel like everything that the UPN measure was striving to achieve is now fully embodied by the Preschool for All measure. So to us, because we do have those connections with our communities, we feel strongly that we will be able to communicate why the change is happening and that this is good, and we should all feel really good about bringing like two strong teams together for what's going to be an incredible campaign for November and hopefully an amazing win.
Okay, great. But you said there were some coalition members who didn't. It was a strong majority.
It was a strong majority vote. Okay. And I don't want to speak for any organization that expressed a differing opinion. I think it's really important for them to be able to feel heard and respected in that process. I think that I didn't see any disagreements that would not be solvable just by either more information or more outreach or more. Yeah, no, I feel good about that we arrived at the right decision.
Awesome. And I just want to question, I'm not sure who this question goes to, but is the intention here, I just want it to be very clear, is the intention here in presenting a unified measure for this, presenting a unified measure, is it for this board to then enact and then repeal the UPN measure that got over the 20,000 validated signatures? Because I do have a serious concern about that, both from a legal standpoint and the spirit of the law and sort of the integrity of our petition and referral system. So,
Commissioner, that issue is not for discussion today. I mean, you can ask the question, but that we are not voting on that today.
no, I understand that.
Yeah.
It just, it impacts my decision to vote for this, because if it's that people want a unified measure, but we are still like that there's a measure, that there hasn't been a decision made about what is going to happen with this other measure that's out there, that we have an obligation to either refer and enact, then that, or enact, then I think it's confusing about this being a single unified measure, because as of now, it wouldn't be.
I can speak to what our coalition's understanding is, if that's helpful.
Emily,
yeah.
could you state your name for the record so people know, who are listening via phone know?
Oh, of course. I'm sorry for not doing that earlier. My name is Emily Von W. Gilbert. Our coalition has been taking this vote and operating under the assumption that it is possible to put a single measure on the ballot. And that is what we want to have happen. So the coalition intention behind supporting Preschool for All is to arrive at one preschool measure on the ballot for this November. That is what we want.
And so, right, so that's the intention, but I'm not sure how that intention can be met, is my point. And so if there's someone that could speak to that, because it seems to be an underlying intention of this referral measure. Does that make sense?
I don't think we have within the coalition sort of that legal expertise. And I do appreciate that the timeline is kind of confusing, that we wouldn't be able to arrive at like doing all those things at once. And there's now sort of a two-step process. All I can say is the assumption that we have been operating under is that it is possible to arrive at a single measure. That's what we want to do. We haven't really talked about what would happen if we merge and then there's a second measure still sitting on the ballot. I don't know what happens then, and we really hope that that's not what is going to happen here.
Yeah, do we have more information from the county legal system of how this works?
Yeah, I'm going to, just a second, please. I'm going to call on our county attorney, Jenny Madcore.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Jenny Madcore, Multnomah County Attorney. And so, Commissioner Myron, can you clarify for me the question that you have and how I can help?
Yes, everyone here seems to be operating under the assumption, and I think everyone wants a unified measure that is a single measure that goes to the ballot. But if this, I think it feels like we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because as of now, we have a petition that has gotten the validated signatures, and from my understanding, and this is so confusing to me, but from my understanding, our legal obligation as the board is either to refer to the ballot, the UP, that measure, or to enact it. So I don't see a way of getting it off the books. Like there just doesn't seem to be a legal mechanism. So we're talking about a unified measure, but that assumption doesn't necessarily seem to be valid. Or I'm wondering how it could be, I guess.
Thank you, Commissioner. That helps me understand. So you are correct that under our county code, when a initiative petition has certified signatures, as UP does, then the board has two options. They can adopt it as a county ordinance, or they can refer it to voters. That issue isn't, as the chair pointed out, that issue isn't before us today, but I understand that it's helping to inform your decision making. So I'm gonna talk about the referral measure. I just want everybody to remember that's not what we are voting on today. So under our code, again, we adopt or we refer. This is a Board of County Commissioners decision, solely within your authority. A majority of the commissioners must agree to take one or the other option. For the purposes of this conversation, if we assume that the board is going to adopt, or that there will be a motion for the board to adopt the UP measure, then that goes before the board in normal course. We'll have a motion, we'll have a second. And if we assume that the board decides to adopt, then it becomes a Multnomah County ordinance, just like any other county ordinance. So we imagine now it's been adopted, it goes into the county code of ordinances. The board then maintains and retains all of its authority as a home rule county to adopt, amend, change, revoke, or repeal a Multnomah County ordinance. Okay, so what would happen there would be, if there was a decision to, for example, repeal the UP measure, at that point it would be the UP ordinance, Multnomah County ordinance, then it would be a voting matter. So we would have a first and a second discussion and then vote. It's not something we don't see this commonly at Multnomah County, because we don't have initiative petitions and or tax measures coming before the board. But again, the board has authority to take the action that they deem is appropriate for Multnomah County and as a legislative body.
Okay. I really appreciate that. And it is, again, I totally understand we're not voting on a merger or anything like that today. We're voting on the Preschool for All measure as amended with the UPN suggestions and after those conversations. It seems to me that in what's happening here and then everyone talking about it, that one of those fundamental assumptions underlying is that there will be some sort of enactment and then repeal, which to me is very legally problematic. So I just want to make sure it's out there that it is not certain by any stretch of the imagination that a second one would not have to be referred by us or enacted in a meaningful way and not just repealed. I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of that. So, and I think.
Did you have other questions?
Yeah, I had one other question. So what happens, again, from that legal standpoint, if the compromise measure is voted down, which hopefully it won't be, and all of that, of course, but I see two potential really major issues with that if it were to happen. And so what would happen to the UPN measure if the compromise measure is voted down?
Jenny, I think
was that a question for? Oh, okay.
I think that's another question.
Legally, like if it's if it's repealed and the compromise measure is voted, like anyway, look, I guess we can get to that at the next conversation if it gets to a question about repeal. But I just wanted to raise those questions. But thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any other questions, Commissioner Myron?
One specific tax. Oh, I'm muted again. I'm like,
no, you're on. You're
okay.
On.
Thank you. For the tax, just a very technical question about the tax. Is it the case that people who live outside of Multnomah County will be paying the tax if they earn income within Multnomah County and their children will not be included in the universal preschool program?
I can answer that.
Thanks.
Yeah, so yeah, we set it up to have both residents of Multnomah County and people who work and earn income in Multnomah County to be a part of this. We mirrored it on the Here Together measure, and because we're hoping to streamline administration of that. piece, as well as the way that Oregon as a state levies income tax.
Okay, that's helpful. Although Here Together covers the 3 counties, so it's people who live outside the county that would pay the tax for universal preschool in the county. Is that correct? I mean, if they live outside and earn income, I live in Washington County. I work in Multnomah County. I earn income there, and I pay this tax. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, that's it. No more questions. Thank you.
To be clear, though, Commissioner, I hope that you don't live in Washington County. Sorry, a little humor there.
It's a public meeting.
Okay, well, we will have, now we're going to go to closing statements from our commissioners, unless any commissioner has another question. All right, seeing none. Commissioner Myron, do you have a closing statement?
Why, yes. Thank you, Chair. And so first of all, I mean, the clear, the overarching sentiment here is gratitude. I want to thank everyone involved with both the Preschool for All and the Universal Preschool Now measures for their incredible work over years and for being here today. I know how much energy, time, and work of the heart and soul it has taken to be engaged in all of this, and especially in recent weeks as things have really accelerated to come up with this proposal here today. So I want to give a little additional thank you for the parent accountability group that I spoke with earlier today, this morning, in fact, just for really taking the time to meet with me and inform me. I also want to give a profound thank you to Commissioner Vega Peterson and her staff for, just boundless amounts of work on this, and for your attentiveness to answering all my myriad of questions throughout the past several months. So I think is hopefully clear, but just to make very clear, I strongly support expanding the availability of free preschool, especially for families that face the steepest barriers to access. BIPOC families, families experiencing poverty and other economic disadvantage, families of children with disabilities, immigrant and refugee families, families who speak languages other than English. We know preschool is a game changer. There's no doubt that when done right, universal preschool has impacts in every possible arena: education, health, individual health, and the public health, the economy, the criminal justice system, and more. I really appreciate the approach of PFA, or Preschool for All, that it centers the voice of people impacted most and has such deep commitment to equity, including families, and also the small business owners and members of community who will benefit from being able to have this opportunity to provide preschool. Over the past several months, I had raised some concerns about Preschool for All, notably about the concern that the initial proposal did not map out a plan for universal access without going back to voters for additional revenue. And that was problematic for me because the universality is so crucial. And I want to really thank Preschool for All for agreeing to make those changes to address this concern. I also want to thank UPN advocates for their work to come to agreement with Preschool for All on a single measure. I understand and support the desire for voters to see a single measure in support of preschool on the ballot in November. And that's where I get to I wish the two sides would have come to a unified proposal prior to submission of the UPN measure during that year wherein they were negotiating. And because I really support the approach. but I do want to mention, and I think it's important to understand, this will leave the board in a difficult position. And that's going to be our main issue as commissioners. It is by no means a given that there will be only one measure that will be referred to the ballot in November. And I'm sort of distressed that the plan to get to a single measure would require this board to maneuver the initiative petition system in a new way that I feel is inherently questionable, both with regard to legality and regard to the spirit of the law. We've heard, and I appreciate, Jenny, you're describing some more of this, that the board will have those two options: to refer the measure to the voters or enact the measure immediately. And that's the UPN measure. And having this one today as the, saying it's the only measure means we plan in advance to enact and repeal this other measure. If that's the case, it will not be enacting. It's actually sort of discarding the thousands of people's signatures who came together and put this on the ballot. And that is our initiative process. It is our system. And I just think the 32,000 people who signed the initiative petition in support of UPN deserve to see that measure on the ballot. And I think it would set a dangerous precedent that the legislative bodies can just do what we want with measures that are proposed through the initiative process before voters have a chance to weigh in and show us their preferences. I totally agree with unification. I can imagine a number of ways that process could have occurred, and it probably can't once we refer this measure, but I wish that had happened and we'd gotten there rather than considering what I believe is just a challenging way to address our own system initiative and signature gathering. So I guess I wish this would have been the single universal preschool measure being referred to the ballot in November. And, I will support this measure because this is all that I believe in. But I also believe that because of this, we will have two measures, or that we should have two measures referred to the ballot. And that's it. Thank you so much to everyone.
Commissioner Jayapal.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all of the presenters who came this morning and for the work that your presentations represented. And thank you, Commissioner Vega-Peterson, for your leadership on this measure. As I was thinking about preschool, I was reminded of my own experience with preschool. Like all of my colleagues, I am a mom. My kids are no longer kids. They are 29 and 26 years old. So preschool was a really long time ago. But despite how long ago it was, I remember vividly, how much time and energy I spent on finding the very best preschool that I could find for them. Loving teachers who loved what they did, a joyful and welcoming environment, programming that focused on social and emotional development and art and music and play. At the time, there wasn't a lot of evidence about preschool and how important it was, but I think all of us as parents know instinctively how important those early years are. And what I recognized at the time and now was that I was able to invest all that time and energy and then pay for the tuition for that high quality program that I found because I had the income to afford it. Today, the evidence is clear. High quality, culturally appropriate preschool is a critical component to a successful transition to kindergarten and then to continued development through school and beyond. And also amply clear is the fact that for too many families, particularly our Black and Brown families, that high quality preschool is simply not accessible in Multnomah County. I want to thank all of the people in the organizations that have worked so hard to bring preschool to the ballot and to Multnomah County. I especially want to thank the parents. And I too had a chance to meet with Early Learning Multnomah's Parent Accountability Council. I was so moved by their passion, their dedication, their energy, their eloquence about how difficult it has been for them and for the communities they represent to access quality preschool. Their commitment to the specific structure and framework of this proposal, including that clear intentional focus on Black and Brown children, including the prohibition on expulsion and suspension, which is so absolutely contrary, I think, to everything that we understand as parents. They also talked to me quite a bit about the fact that this is the first time for most of them, maybe all of them, that they've been involved in an effort like this. And I really want to acknowledge how important not just the content of the work that they've done has been, but their engagement in this process, how important it is to them to see their work come before this Board of Commissioners. I think that is an amazing, amazing accomplishment and something that we should, applaud. We can't do it in person, but we'll do it virtually. I also want to thank two groups. Yep, we're doing it. I want to thank Preschool for All and Universal Preschool Now for their dedication to unifying around the framework. I'll talk in a second about the fact that we still have two separate ballot measures here, but the fact that I think it's what we see before us today is the best of both of those. And those robust provisions for workforce development, career pathways, living wages. We're addressing both sides of the equation in a really holistic way. And I do believe, as others have said, that it provides a platform that's going to help not just our preschool system, but our entire K through 12 system. It's careful, it's thought out, it's comprehensive, and I believe it sets Multnomah County up to be a leader in the implementation of a publicly funded universal preschool program. I also want to echo my appreciation for the fact that this measure, the Preschool for All measure, was changed in order to clarify the path to universality and to specifically provide for a mechanism to raise the revenue that would be needed to do that. That was a concern of mine early on as well, and I was really glad to see that changed. Also really glad to see the changes with respect to wages for preschool teachers and staff. I think, again, what we've ended up with is something that's really the best of both worlds. I do want to acknowledge that we have another measure to act on. I, too, would have preferred to address both at one time. But since we'll be taking up the other measure at a later date, I'm not going to comment on it. For now, I'm just going to say that while having both move on parallel tracks has clearly complicated for us the process, it also clearly speaks to how important this issue is to our community. And I think that's something to be celebrated and to be acted upon. So, not a lot of suspense here, but I'm really pleased to say that I will be voting aye on the referral. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Begay-Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. So it's really hard to know where to begin right now. I have a lot of thank yous to do, but I really want to say that this is very incredible what we are experiencing right now with such strong unified support for moving Preschool for All to the ballot in a way that recognizes the strength and the urgency within our community to make universal preschool a reality for children in Multnomah County. We've seen it through the long process that we've had with parent groups, with community groups, with large tables of members who have been working on Preschool for All policy. We've been seeing it through the Universal Preschool Network with their strong coalition and their ability to have people sign on and say, yes, we want universal preschool now. What we are doing today is in the spirit of making the reality happen for both measures, and really it recognizes the work that has been done to make sure that what we're putting forward today has the values, has the policies, and has the mechanisms to put together a universal preschool measure that incorporates the pieces of universal preschool now that we know from them, and because of what they've told us, is what they want to go forward with and what they intend to go forward with. And so that's why, I'm so happy that we have come to the place where we are now. I've been working on policy now in elected office for almost 8 years. It's never as clean as we'd like it to be. It's never as easy as we'd like it to be. That's part of this work. But it's also, part of what I know about this is that you can never stop having conversations. You can never stop trying to reach for, for your ultimate goal, and doing it with as much support and as much inclusion as possible has always been what I've been trying to do. And so I'm really proud that what we're doing today is that, and we've heard from Universal Preschool now that they want us to move forward with Preschool for All as the measure, the single measure that goes forward on the ballot. And so I really appreciate their work on that. I also just, really appreciate all of the people who spoke and testified today, the people and organizations that have been in this work from the beginning. We had so many folks on the Preschool for All Task Force, its work groups, our pre-referral committee, and the technical advisory committee who spent hours and hours working on this policy in discussions, really making sure that this is something both that we could serve the community and that recognizes the values of the community. The Early Learn Multnomah's PAC has been mentioned several times today, and Ms. Lydia was able to testify. I know we have additional members of theirs listening in today to this, so thank you so much for all of your work and partnership on this. And I can't, we can't move forward with this without thanking the DCHS team, so Peggy Bray, Mohammed, Peggy Semolinsky, but most especially Brooke Chilton-Timmons, who has done so much work making sure that this is something that we have an implementation plan and administration plan that works for Multnomah County. And, I also have to give a shout out to Kim Melton, who's been a part of this work back, 8 years ago when it was something that was more community driven, but has also been so important to getting us to the place within the discussions that have happened in Multnomah County. To the team that's been working on this, Mark, who testified today, Amy Reese, Latino Network, all of the team there, and so many others. Thank you so much for what you've put in. I have to thank my team, Chris Fick, Hayden Miller, and Megan Irwin for all of the work that you've done in making this happen. And as just a final note, I want to, I do want to acknowledge that in the resolution that we're voting on, there's a tribute to someone very special to Preschool for All, Serah Cohen Doherty, who died unexpectedly last month. She was an integral part of this work from the very beginning in her role at SCP, and she was honestly its biggest cheerleader. Her parents, Jerry and Ruth Cohen, are watching today's meeting, and I want to thank them for being here today, and I want to thank them for their gift of their beautiful, intelligent daughter.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really so proud of how these two measures have been able to come together. I think you all set a fine example of maybe what our national leaders should be doing, finding ways to collaborate and put what's really important at the forefront. Frederick Douglass said that it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men, and I will add women to that as well. And I did want to highlight that I have been having conversations with some of our legislators, because I think that there needs to be a legislative fix in our Oregon Constitution that allows petitioners that once they've gathered the required signatures, that if they choose to withdraw that measure, I believe they should have that authority. I don't know. I know that the legislature has a lot on their plate. I don't know if that's something that could occur sooner than later, but that is something that I will be advocating for, because it seems like we're all on the same page, and yet process is getting in the way. And I can't help but think in this time of a civil rights movement, and I question and wonder, and I think it's all up to us individually to decide what rules, regulations, ordinances, and laws are put into place to control power, and how much of that is related to institutional racism. And I don't have the answer, but I do have a lot of questions. And I think, Kali, you put it very well. You had mentioned that many people are asking you, what can you do? How can we help? How can we be part and support the Black Lives Matter movement? And I completely agree with you that this is a incredible step that we can do to be part of that movement. It is not enough to not be racist. We have to be anti-racist. And the way that we get there is through policies like this. So I am proud and grateful to support this. And I'm not going to thank all the hundreds of people, but please know that you all have my gratitude that my fellow commissioners have already mentioned. And I think we're in a great place, and I'm excited to be moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Over the past several months, hundreds of parents, and actually it's almost nearly 1,000 people, have called and emailed me to share their stories about the challenges they face trying to raise kids in Multnomah County. I've heard from families who desperately need affordable childcare so that they have enough income left over to cover their housing, their bills, their most basic needs. I heard from a single mom who tragically lost her partner to cancer, and she's now struggling to work and raise a family on her own without childcare that's both consistent and affordable. A preschool teacher shared with me that she was having a hard time making ends meet, and she couldn't even dream of making enough money at her job to send her own children to the school where she provided care and education to other people's kids. These stories and circumstances play out over and over and over across our entire community, and they paint a picture of a system that simply does not, cannot serve our community, kids or adults, well. The current patchwork system of preschool and childcare in our community has too many gaps, too many barriers, and not enough option to serve all families and all children equitably. This pandemic has exposed all of these shortcomings, turning up the financial, logistical, and emotional pressure on working parents. And if it wasn't clear before, it should be crystal clear now. Affordable and accessible preschool and childcare is a linchpin in the way that our society functions. High quality early education opens a door for kids to achieve more in school, get better jobs, and succeed in their lives. Beyond the direct benefit children get, we also can't overlook how critical the childcare system is for parents, communities, employers, nearly every sector of our economy. And as it's often the case, when our systems are broken and incomplete, the harms fall heaviest on working families and families of color. A reimagined and properly funded preschool system in Multnomah County would be transformative. The returns on this investment would show up both immediately and down the line for children, families, and caretakers, educators, and ultimately our entire community. Children who need it most and have the least access would be able to finally reap the lifelong benefits of high quality early childhood education that prepares them to be successful in elementary school. Families would have one of their heaviest financial burdens lifted, and fewer families would face the impossible and unfair choice between working and staying home to take care of children. Preschool educators would receive a living wage commensurate with the trust that we place in them to care for our children during such a formative time. Almost 3 years ago, I moderated a panel at PSU called Preschool for All, Investing in Equity. The Oregon Early Learning Division gave a presentation on universal preschool, while panelists from other cities shared how their communities had achieved universal preschool program. The merits and benefits for Preschool for All were as clear then as they are now, but at that point, I'll be honest, making it a reality felt like a really far off dream for Multnomah County. And yet, this year, we've had not one, but 2 measures that could present a plan forward to making preschool available to all kids. I want to take a few moments to express my deep gratitude to everyone who was involved with the Preschool for All measure. For the last 2 years, led by Commissioner Jessica Vega-Peterson, a dedicated group of parents, community members, and education experts have weighed in on how we can build a new model of preschool for the children of Multnomah County. But not just any model, a model that centers the needs of children of color and those with the least access. a model that uplifts the voices of parents from those communities. They told us what was needed to tear down the barriers to access that too often have been placed in their path. Commissioner Vega-Peterson, I want to especially thank you and your team for your work with the Preschool for All Task Force. And I also want to thank the staff at the Department of County Human Services for their dedication, their enthusiasm, and their tireless work to help make real the details and policies of this vision. And it wasn't easy. From the start, it was clear that Preschool for All would not be a program created for the community, but rather one that was crafted in partnership with the community. Many of the foundational systems in our nation, in our state, and in our county were built for some and not for others, perpetuating structural inequities and racism. We have had the opportunity to build, to create in a different way with this initiative, a way that helps us move closer to the kind of community that we want to be. This measure is the result of the work of more than 95 individuals and representatives from more than 50 organizations. Thank you all for showing up for our children and for our community. And to the petitioners who brought forward the Universal Preschool Now measure, and I know that many of you are watching this board meeting and appreciate you coming to testify this morning. I want to thank you for all of your work and for capturing the imagination and potential of this program. The thousands of signatures that you were able to collect during a public health emergency reflects your passion for this issue, and more importantly, shows the urgency of the need and the breadth of support for this idea in our community. Honestly, the depth of support is not surprising to me. We are at a moment in history where we as a community are seeking sweeping and transformative changes to our criminal justice and safety systems. And at the same time, we know we must equally focus on the upstream investments that can change the future of thousands of children and families. That means housing, that means employment, and that means education. A high-quality, accessible preschool program in Multnomah County would be one of the most effective and radical ways that we can address the disproportionate and generational harm of systemic racism and economic inequality. We have a window of opportunity. I want to thank everyone who spoke this morning for your heartfelt words and your call to action, especially for your call to us as a board to put only a single measure on the November ballot. In the coming days, the board will continue to be in conversation with you and the community members about our options and about our next steps. And if the board clerk will please call the roll.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
And Chair Kafoury?
Aye. The resolution as amended is adopted. Now we have the time for board comments on non-agenda items, and I'm going to call on commissioners by district to see if you have any items for discussion today. We will start with District 4, Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. I do. We have our East County issue form today from 3 to 5. You can go to the East County issue form Facebook page and RSVP to do a Zoom call. And I will have Commissioner Vega-Peterson join me. We're going to give a brief update about our response to COVID and how it relates to the reopening of our schools. We're going to have MESD, Multnomah Educational Service District, joining us. So I hope you will all join us at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
I'm so happy. I also look forward to the East County issue forum this afternoon and appreciate Commissioner Stegman having me be a part of that, I think, a really important conversation. Thank you.
Commissioner Jayapal.
No announcements for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Myron.
No announcements. Thank you.
Thank you. Oop, did I put myself back on mute? No, I didn't. Finally, I got getting the hang of this mute button. Thank you, everyone. That concludes today's regular board meeting, and there being no further business, we are adjourned.